covered in some of the things I'm speaking? Great. Okay, so we looked at the people dynamics. We looked at the attributes, behaviors, the attitudes, and the motivations, which are the source of our behavior. And then, so once we have these assessment instruments that we were able to test these things and identify these things, then we had to look at what is the culture that we're dealing with. And the culture was changing tremendously. People's jobs were changing tremendously. The job descriptions were were not specific enough. So then we had to tie in the job descriptions, the clear standards of performance, and the critical job elements to the jobs that the people did, then looking at their assessment results, looking at what is the organizational capacity for everyone as a whole, and then what are the individual capacities, and tie those things together. Okay, so we identified performers. We looked at, okay, what needs to be done, the results. What does it need to look like when it's done? Covey said, what's the best way to get there from here? Begin with the end in mind, absolutely. Okay, then we looked at the competencies that were based on attributes, behaviors, attitudes, and motivations. And then we looked at people. Who did we identify in these assessment instruments as someone who had the capacity to take on higher levels? Okay, so then we benchmarked that. We took all of the different levels in the organization. We benchmarked their scores, and we looked at the highest level of performers, not only performance-wise, but personality-wise, how they got along with their coworkers, how they managed, and we benchmarked what is the perfect, what is the ideal blueprint, what we're looking for in that particular position. And then we began putting programs together that would address closing the gap of those competencies. Okay, so we benchmarked the jobs, we benchmarked the assessments, and what it ended up looking like, this is in your packet, what it ended up looking like was something that looked like this. Very intensive. You'll see that in your packet. You can't see it from up here, but you can see how much information is there, okay? And then to make it simple for our managers, we put a sheet together again in your packet that said assessment summary for managers. So we looked at first the attributes. What are their strengths? We listed 3 strengths. What are their liabilities? We listed 3 liabilities. Can you imagine how much easier it is for managers if they knew these things up front? What is the best way to manage or motivate that person? And then, what is the best way to incentivize? People are motivated by different things. So we did that for the attributes or the skills. We did that for their style. We did that for their values or their attitudes, and we did that for their motivations. Now, let me tell you the kinds of things that the motivation identified, since you seem to have some interest in that area. We identified several things, and there's about 150 pages of assessment information. Managers do not want to look at all that data. You want it simplified, so we simplified it for them by putting that document together. Basically, what this instrument, the Quality of Motivation Questionnaire, did, this is our little cheat sheet. We looked at what is their disclosure level, what is their positive motivation and negative motivation. The way that we can identify that is because, you know, we're all genetically put together. We have a history. We have a family that we come from. And so the motivation, the positive motivations that we identified were things like attainment. What is your capacity to attain what you want professionally not only professionally, but also what are the things that make you happy? Can you attain the physical kinds of things like enjoying friends or taking a bubble bath? Because if you have that downtime, you're going to be more productive in the work environment if you take care of yourself. Then we looked at the opposite of that, the non-productive behavior, and we said, okay, what is your level of self-defeatance? How do you defeat yourself? For example, let's say that you are offered a position that you've been trained for. The people that you work with think that you do wonderfully in that position. You are in a time of your life where it would make sense to take that position because you don't have kids at home anymore. And you go into that interview and you screw it up, or you say, no, I don't want it because you're afraid. That is defeating something that you can attain, is it not? If you have coworkers or friends that want to go out and do something with you, and you say, nope, I just want to stay here and work 24/7. I used to take my work to parties with me. I used to be a workaholic. I don't do that anymore. And you say, nope, I'm going to do this, but yet part of what's necessary to do that is to get to know your coworkers, because there are things that you learn about other people through networking that you don't in a formal environment. Are we looking at a couple minutes? We're good? Okay. Then we looked at what is your capacity to avoid bad situations. Are you walking down the street and there's a pothole there and you're not even paying attention, you fall in a pothole? Or do you see that your company's about ready to lay people off and you just kind of like let it happen and you're not proactive to look at how am I going to get myself set up for the next step in my life? So you can see the positive and the negative, and how we measure that in this instrument. Then we take a look at what is your ability to escape a bad situation. What are your escape skills? Let's say that you are, I'll give an example, you are in a job position and your manager is constantly berating you. Do you stay there and take it, or do you say, you know what, I'm better than this, I have value to add, and I either need to address this and change the dynamic, or I need to go someplace else where someone can appreciate my knowledge, skills, and abilities. So do you have the capacity to escape personal and professional difficult situations? Okay, so what the result that we ended with was, and you had asked about results, right? Personal and professional results. The professional results were that people had real clarity on the next step in their career progression. We had a 1-year, 3-year, and 5-year blueprint for success. And there was a real track for people to run on. So this was the next step in their career progression that was identified, and I saw several promoted to the next step. Professionally, what also happened is, you know those things that go unsaid in an organization? Like someone will get promoted, but maybe they're very harsh with their employees. That was identified. And that's going to be a roadblock or a barrier to moving forward in this organization, because that was the culture we were looking to create. Personal and professional development. I heard comments like, I blame you. I knew that there was an issue, but I couldn't identify it, and this assessment identified it. And since we have spoken about this assessment and my results, I have gone from relationships that were not satisfying to me to someone who was my friend for a long time.